Give me to drink.
How is it that thou, a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? The Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans.
If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water.
Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with. The well is deep. From whence then hast thou this living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well, and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle?
Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. The water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life.
Sir, give me of this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw.
Go, call thy husband, and come hither.
I have no husband.
Thou hast well said, I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. In that saidst thou truly.
Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain. And ye say that it is in Jerusalem that men ought to worship.
Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain, nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, and salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth.
I know that Messiah is coming, which is called Christ. And when he is come, he will tell us all things.
I that speak unto thee am he.
This narrative of Jesus with the Samaritan woman at the well at Sychar is a very familiar passage of Scripture and well used by preachers and Bible teachers, most likely because it has a wealth of teaching on our spiritual relationship with Jesus. However, the one I want to focus on today is that of a personal and intimate worship. Although the initial conversation is about living water, it may well be that the woman switches the conversation to worship because she doesn't really understand the living water concept. The conversation about worship has some significant realities which we will explore. The most meaningful things in life are those we experience rather than those we can possess. We can acquire much during this lifetime, but the most lasting things are those we truly experience. Perhaps there is no more meaningful experience in life than holding in your arms for the first time your newborn baby. It is an experience that neither money or possessions can impart. No amount of money, possessions, or wealth can rival such an experience. Personal and intimate worship is just such an experience. It must be something of an acute awareness rather than something we merely observe. To experience such intimacy, I must intentionally participate in it. The writer of our opening track caught something of the essence of this experience when they wrote, "Still the greatest treasure remains for those who gladly choose you now." I would be the first to admit that this matter of personal worship is challenging and at times time-consuming and perhaps in some ways quite taxing. It takes effort, concentration and focus to maintain an intimate connection with God. However, the reality is that the outcome can lift the human heart and soul to another level of intimate relationship with our Father. Hymn writer John Burton comprehended something of the distraction of the human heart when seeking the intimacy of personal worship. "I often say my prayers, but do I ever pray? And do the wishes of my heart go with the words I say? I may as well kneel down and worship gods of stone to offer to a living God a prayer of words alone." One of the challenges with personal worship is, like the woman at the well, our concept of worship being limited. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem. It was a matter of either or. Jesus pinpoints one of the problems of worship, sticking to the known. It may well be that authentic worship takes us into the unknown. God is not confined to geographical or man-made boundaries, and neither should our understanding of worship. In verse 24, Jesus gets down to the nitty-gritty of authentic worship when he declares, God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship in the spirit and truth. Although expressions of worship in this charismatic age have focused on physical expressions, the reality is that until we come to fully comprehend that real worship is an attitude and activity of the human spirit, we have missed the whole point. Now, this is a realization that we need to explore on a very individual basis. It is my spirit. Engaging with the Spirit of God. That is the essence of meaningful and authentic worship. It is when I open myself entirely to his presence in the aloneness of my time of meditation that spirit engages with spirit. We do need to be acutely aware that when we come into worship, we are deeply conscious of who it is whose presence we seek. It seems that initially the woman at the well had no idea to whom she was talking. Jesus says to her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. I suspect that there are times when we come to worship as a routine experience, something we feel we have to do, something that is a requirement. We need to keep in mind we are engaging the presence and attention of the King of Kings, the eternal God. Consequently, there is need for an intentional preparation of both heart and mind. Sir, the woman said, I can see you are a prophet. When we engage in meaningful worship, there comes the awareness. One of the problems of humanity is that all too often we are satisfied with the status quo and are disinclined to step out of our comfort zone and seek a deeper experience. As the conversation between Jesus and the woman progressed, she became aware that the person to whom she was talking was no ordinary individual. When we intentionally engage in meaningful personal worship, we will find a growing awareness of the person of Jesus Christ. Spiritual senses become heightened, and something deep within our being responds to an intimate connection. When Jesus told the woman that the hour is coming and now is when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, he was no doubt referring to the liberty and freedom that would come through his death and resurrection. Worship for Israel was a prescribed and restricted experience, basically confined to the temple. It may well be that in this exchange with the woman, Jesus was indicating that real and authentic worship was a liberating and unshackling experience where the human spirit engages intensely with the Spirit of God. There is a sense in which to truly embark upon a new and meaningful worship is an adventure into the unknown, for worship in spirit and in truth is different for every person. For to worship in spirit and in truth requires the application and involvement of the whole of our personalities. And as our personalities differ, so will the expression and experience of our authentic worship differ. It is not so much the wrong place that makes worship unacceptable to God, but a wrong spirit. Sometimes our spirit is so out of tune with God, so corrupted by the things of this age, so distorted by resentment, anger, disbelief, etc., that worship becomes a mockery. At thy feet I bow adoring, bending lower, lower still, giving up my all to follow, just to do my Master's will.
Giving up my all to follow.
It may well be that in this conversation with the woman at the well, Jesus releases us to discover personal worship that is real, authentic, and very personal. Their hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. It is the propensity of human beings to try and confine worship within places, actions, and situations. Such an exercise may well be trying to fit God into the confines of our human thinking. Such a practice will not only limit our conception of God, it will constrain our worship to that which is within human processes. To worship in truth requires of us an openness and frankness that removes all facades and disguises. True worshippers of God are those who come honestly, with empty hands and open hearts, those who come into God's presence without the facades we display to each other, those who come to God, warts and all. Lord, I pray that I may know the risen one and throned on high. Empty hands, I'm stretching to thee. Show thyself to me, I cry. Pioneer Salvation Army officer Ruth Tracy, a prolific writer of Salvation Army songs, understood one of the crucial attitudes in personal worship when she wrote, "Empty hands, I'm stretching to thee." There is a sense in which when we seek God's presence in personal worship, our hands need to be emptied of everything that can distract our focus on Him. That is not to say we do not bring Him our cares and concerns, but we need to come initially, focused and without distractions, concentrating our attention on Him, who is the motivation of our worship. In all this, we must come to a place of accepting that human worship will always be imperfect and not get too distressed or overwhelmed with feelings of failure if our personal worship has not gone quite as we anticipated. The point is that it is not the perfection of our worship that God seeks, but rather the sincerity of our intention. Even when our worship in our eyes is flawed and imperfect, God seeks the engagement of the heart more than our performance.